I own a farm in Stirlingshire, which is part of the Scottish Agricultural Cooperative. We used to trade independently using our land for grazing cattle and sheep, but when the government implemented new biomass and biodiversity incentives, we joined the co-op, helping us to make the change to renewable practices without losing out financially. The government incentives were part of a plan to reforest the whole of the ancient Caledonian forest, which used to cover most of Scotland, but of which 99% was deforested to create agricultural land. We bring all of our timber to Cumbernauld on the maglev, and from here it can be delivered to anywhere in Europe. Production is still high in the Scottish livestock sector, but it's mostly been moved out of the forestry areas and into the higher density stacked farms. A lot of the fruit and veg has changed as well, and now it's mostly produced in controlled environments or hydroponic farms, where the yield is higher but the space taken up is less. Now we're part of an industry which helps to reduce carbon levels in the atmosphere, provides a source of clean energy, provides building material to the construction industry, and helps to increase local biodiversity, for which the government gives us tax relief. It's a great time for Scottish farming.
Originally from South Africa, my brother and I left the United Arab Emirates 12 years ago, when the recession really took hold. We knew many people who had moved here to work in the renewable energy industries after it became clear that the oil would run out. A friend found us cheap accommodation in Cumbernauld, and from there we looked for jobs. At the time, there were a lot of jobs in the construction industry, helping to lay the magnetic tracks and rebuild the town centre, so it was easy to find unskilled work locally. After a few years, the opportunities available to us really started to expand, as the first maglev routes came into operation. Suddenly, everywhere became much closer, meaning we could apply for jobs all over the country, but still live in Cumbernauld, where we had settled. My brother now works in Glasgow, building high-speed, hydrogen-driven ferries for Caledonian McBride. I took an open university course in environmental science at Edinburgh, and I'm now working with SEPA, where we are developing ways to treat nuclear waste from Scotland's decommissioned power station. The Scottish government really encouraged young people like us to come to Scotland. Whether we had specific skills or not, the local population was declining and aging, meaning the young Scottish workforce was struggling to support their elders. The migrant workers halted this decline and created a real mix of cultures, especially around transport nodes like Cumbernauld.
Scotland has been a net exporter of fish for about 15 years, and the amount we export is always rising, a big change from 30 years ago, when the only fish we exported were farmed salmon. When everyone saw the full extent of the environmental damage done by the trawlers, the industry was frozen by the Scottish Parliament. Nobody was allowed to fish until something was done to repair the damage, which was almost irreparable. The European fleets were forced out, and the disagreement at Westminster, together of course with domestic energy and water production, was one of the key factors which led to Scotland becoming independent in 2012. A lot of people who lost their jobs in fishing actually got new jobs working at sea to repair the damaged reefs and replenish the fish stock. There's a certain irony in that, but they were the only people with the skills to do it, and it kept a lot of people in work. The lack of wild fish led to the rapid growth in the number of saltwater and freshwater fish farms, like the ones here in Cumbernauld. They have almost finished transforming the old terraces and windbreaks into farming ponds. The day usually starts with a general inspection of the ponds and the water quality checked. Sometimes, under certain weather conditions, it can get stale, you know. The waterfalls help to oxygenate the water so it's always fresh. You can tell because the fish are always active and searching for food. We try to make it as much like a natural habitat as we can. A reinvigorated fishing industry based on small-scale cooperatives now exports from Cumbernauld on a worldwide scale. This has been made possible by the fantastic transport links the maglev has provided. For example, wild fish can be here from Arbroath in 15 minutes, not 15 hours. The real benefit with rearing the fish here is our proximity to the freight lines. The fish can be happily swimming around here, and then a couple of hours later they're on your plate in a sushi restaurant in Soho. Having more fresh fish in the Scottish diet has really helped to reverse Scotland's appalling health record, transforming it into one of the healthiest nations in the world. Life expectancy is now at 93, 20 years above the retirement age.
I think Cumbernaulds transport system has no comparison. We came to Cumbernauld 3 years ago for the opportunity to travel around the world quickly and easily. It meant I could commute easily to Edinburgh, but we're still only 10 minutes from Glasgow's nightlife and shopping.
It also meant that we could jump on the fast train to mainland Europe and be in Paris in just over an hour. The children loved the travelling. We couldn't do that anywhere else. Now Matthew, he's the youngest. He's in second year at primary school here in Cumbernauld. Stephen is the musical one in the family. He is studying his higher level course at school in Glasgow, but takes the maglev to Stirling for his music lessons. Christopher attends the same school as his brother. Each morning they walk into the school pickup zone in the centre, where they meet their teacher, who takes them on the maglev to school and into one of the mobile classrooms. It's really safe that way because they never have to cross any roads, and it cuts out the school run for us.
Our daughter Leslie hopes to go to university, and of course there are 3 universities within 10 minutes travel time on a train from Cumbernauld, so she won't have to leave home. The older generation now have the ability to travel anywhere within Europe for free, allowing them convenient access to a great variety of services. My father can still get to St Andrews to play golf each week, even though he no longer drives, and he's able to keep in touch with most of his old friends down south. The housing here is very mixed, ranging from short or medium stay rented accommodation to cheap housing for first-time buyers or even luxury villas for the better off. This gives the neighbourhood a multi-generational quality as it provides for all sorts of requirements: family, business, elderly, homeless and shared accommodation. With every new house, there is the option of acquiring a specifically designated plot for your own organic produce. We thought this was a great idea. It gives the kids a chance to learn about healthy eating and where food comes from, and saves money on the food bill.
There are tens of millions of people who travel through here each year, and it brings a great cultural diversity. There's also a lot of passing trade, and the local economy has had a fantastic boost. Travellers, workers, students, you see them all. There's never a dull moment, always so lively. That was the way it was meant to be in the first place.
For 1 week each year, we hire a barge from Cumbernauld Harbour and take it up the canal to Loch Ness. The summers are getting longer and longer now, which means instead of going abroad, we can get a good holiday right here. The midges were always the biggest problem when I was a kid, but you don't really notice them these days. The canal can be pretty busy at this time of year, with a lot of people doing the trip from East Coast to the West Coast, or vice versa. So there's a great atmosphere, especially in Cumbernauld, where most people keep their boats.